Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, hi. Oh, shoot. What happened?
No, that was the worst intro ever. My fault. Listen, I'm still blown away by the information we just learned about you. I'm not going to share it over the stream unless you want me to share it. But
Go ahead and
I've learned something.
Go ahead and share it. Mike got his panties in a bunch because
all in a wad, just all in a wad, dude. People, all 63 of you, Nichoel Schmergens Jergens did not know who the Wu-Tang Clan was.
Wait,
I'm gonna let you guys let's have a moment of silence for Nichoel Jergens.
No. I have heard of them, but I don't believe I have knowingly heard any of their songs. Like probably I've heard but not realized it.
We just played a couple songs for her. She was absolutely bobbing her head. She's a Wu-Tang fan now, but especially you guys out there in the audience, listen, I apologize.
Should I show them the West Side?
Don't. That will you'll get the episode taken down. You'll get us banned. Nichoel, pretty lady, pretty just beautiful woman inside and out. If she ever shows you how she does West Side, you honest to goodness will think that might not even be human, let alone a woman. So I'm begging her not to do it.
He said I had webbed fingers.
Oh, the ugliest.
So I won't do
something
it.
like. It was horrible.
I'm not going to do it.
I was like, do you have arthritis? What happened? You have rheumatoid arthritis at 43?
I might. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Wow, get that treated.
Anyway. That was really exciting, but let's get right into it. Today I want to talk about pedophilia. So let's get right from one exciting topic to another. Let's and we have talked about this. We did have one show about this where
was the show actually about pedophilia? I don't remember. I feel like we went off into it, but
yeah, good point. I'm not sure, but we talked about an actual professor at the university who was answering questions or giving a speech specifically about MAP, and he's written a book about MAP, minor
attracted persons.
Yes, minor attracted persons, which basically the attempt is to say that just because you're attracted to underage children doesn't mean you act on it. So, and pedophilia has such a bad stigma because it's fucking pedophilia. So they're trying to separate this idea that you can be attracted to children who cannot consent to your attraction. It's okay as long as you don't act on it. This is what minor attracted persons, the movement seems to be to me. And I thought it was just this small thing happening, no big deal, because there are actually, in all the conspiracy theories, one of them is that, there's a movement to normalize pedophilia because the conspiracy theory of the global pedophilia rings, right, with Epstein and what's her face that was just in court, where they basically they charged her on 5 out of 6 charges, but would not open the books nor show any of the children, the people that she ran to, which are very high name elite people for sure. But anyways, the point is that the conspiracy theory behind all of this is that that's going on. There's a global pedophilia ring. And that is the reason why the media, who is also run by the same people who are the global elites, right, is trying to normalize pedophilia. And I thought, that's so much, right? That's so much. But then today, I see this, and I'm going to share this with you. Please hold.
Holding.
This is what happens today. USA Today. USA. The USA paper. Very large subscribe to paper, very large paper that people pay for all across the United States. Said this: when most of the public thinks of pedophilia, they assume it's synonymous with child sexual abuse. A pedophile is an adult who is sexually attracted to children, but not all pedophiles abuse kids. And some people who sexually abuse kids are not pedophiles. They put that out today. Now they've since deleted it because they got so much backlash. But then here's also what they said. They deleted the tweet, but not the story. The story, according to them, is still behind their paywall on their site. But they deleted the whole thread. Now there's a lot of people in here. You can go on Twitter and check it all out yourself. There's a lot of people in here who have posted pictures of the thread they put. In essence, I'm going to let everyone do their own research.
Can you go back to the quote
initial
from the story, please?
Yes, yeah. Right here.
Because there was something I wanted to touch on, but go ahead.
Can I shut it or do you need it open?
Yeah. Go ahead and shut it. It's fine.
So the fact that, so it is a long story. They try to pull in experts, professors and doctors, and to discuss normalizing pedophilia is what they're doing. They're normalizing it. It's a long story that's still up on this major mainstream organization, which means it gets a lot of eyeballs across our entire country. And it leads me to become more and more of a conspiracy theorist every day. It leads me to believe more and more that these things that we are hearing are correct, and that I really have lost all trust and faith in our mainstream media organizations.
Can you know what? Actually, can you open it back up?
Yeah, sure.
Because there's something I want to make sure I have correct before I point it out.
There.
Okay. When most of the public thinks of pedophilia, they assume it's synonymous with sexual abuse. A pedophile is an adult who is sexually attracted to children, but not all pedophiles abuse kids. So there, for me, is the problem. I think, and I would love to know who actually wrote this. Is this like some op-ed piece and USA Today doesn't necessarily subscribe to this, or is this actually a USA Today journalist?
So here is the complicated research behind pedophilia. So it's apparently one of the USA Today journalists.
Okay. Can you go to the actual one we were reading? Mm-hmm. Okay, so a pedophile is an adult who is sexually attracted to children, but not all pedophiles abuse kids. I guess the person who wrote this doesn't understand that anytime an adult makes a decision to interact with a child sexually, by definition, it's already abuse. So that entire statement is lacking any real critical thought, and it's pretty ridiculous.
Well, again,
so
like I
guess what that person is trying to contend is that there are some relationships that are actually consensual relationships between a minor and an adult. And I guess we also have to qualify it, because technically a relationship could be a minor and adult if the person is 18 and one is 17, right? So by definition, legally and technically,
that's not what we're talking about.
But we're talking about someone, in my mind, who's like, even I'll say
prepubescent.
15, well, even not even prepubescent. I'll say like 15 and below. Like, I certainly, no man or woman would want to come to my front door and be trying to call out my 15-year-old child. Like, there would just be an issue right there. So I try and put those things in the perspective of how I would look at it with my own kids. If a guy came to the door to pick up my daughter, who's 17 right now, 17 and a half, and he was 19, I'm not going to be like, dude, I'm calling the police. This is statutory rape. I mean, that's silliness. There is some wiggle room for how we interpret these things. But in adults, someone over 19, 20 years old coming to deal with someone who's 16, 15, 14, to me, that's really young. And I know girls kind of are notorious for dating older guys, because girls tend to be way more mature than guys, so they kind of like land in those areas. But anyway, not to go too far off into that, but it sounds like that person is trying to literally just take away any responsibility from a person who finds themselves attracted to a child. Like, you haven't done anything wrong as long as you're not raping them or
They are
molesting them or something like
trying
that.
to normalize the word pedophilia so that it becomes comfortable to think, well, yeah, of course it's okay if you do that. As long as you're not hurting kids, of course it's okay if you're attracted to kids, right? That's the only answer for there's no reason for this article ever. What is the reason of informing a population of this idea that it's okay to be a pedophile as long as you're not hurting children? It's simply a long article to further the discussion in society, to normalize it within society, so that at some point it's like, okay, oh yeah, sure, it's fine. And that's where I have really lost. I mean, I don't care for the mainstream media anyways. I say turn it off, it's shit. And I see something like this and I want to blow up every mainstream media thing we have. I mean, it's so harmful. And I wouldn't ask them to take it off. I'm for free speech. Keep it on. But I will ask people to notice and to question. That's what I'm doing.
So in my mind, the person who wrote this article would be serving the people who she seems to be wanting to serve much better if her contention was simply, there are some of you who are just going to be naturally attracted to children in the same way that there are people who are naturally attracted to literally like older people, like 80 and 90. I forget what the name of those kind of people are, but you're attracted to like people in their 80s and 90s when you're in your 20s and stuff, not when you're at the same age. Or in the same way that people have, fetishes with super overweight people, and they just love even to watch super overweight people eat. Like, I've seen actual documentaries on this stuff. I know it sounds funny, but literally there are people out there. So there are people out there with all these kind of sort of abnormal tendencies. So it's not so surprising that there would be people who are attracted to children. I have to say that. I am in no way, shape, or form one of them.
But we don't need to
them.
normalize.
But the problem is, the person would have better served those people who she seems to be wanting to talk to if she would say something like, yeah, maybe there are some of you who are going to be attracted to children, but acting on that attraction is a real problem, right? So maybe they need therapy. Maybe they need some sort of counseling, whatever it takes, right? Even though I know, by the way, that pedophiles, child molesters, people like that, even rapists literally have the highest recidivism rate of any crime on earth.
Highest what rate?
Recidivism, that means likelihood to recommit the crime.
Wow,
right? So if I go right now and I rob a
spell
it don't matter. I used it. It's like 8 syllables. I'm smart. Okay, don't be mad. You don't be mad.
What is the word? Recidivism?
Wu-Tang forever.
Jesus, I've never even heard of that word. Did you look that up in the dictionary today?
Recidivism? No. Yes, recidivism is recommitting a crime, right? So if I go to rob a liquor store because I'm broke, the likelihood is that if I'm caught and I do time for robbing that liquor store, I most likely will not reoffend. I will most likely not go rob another liquor store once I get out of jail. The likelihood that someone who, diddles little children and all that kind of stuff will recommit is like literally like almost 100%. And that's literally the one crime where they almost know the person is going to recommit the crime. So they clearly have some sort of deficiency or character flaw that is, some insatiable appetite for children.
Who knows?
I honestly feel sorry for them in the sense that I feel it is a sickness. I do believe they have a sickness, but your sickness still needs to be taken care of. So we can't allow you to have the freedom to live the way you want to live just because it's your condition, right? This can't go into the basket of, don't judge people who want to change sexes and all that kind of stuff, or don't judge people who want to sleep with people who are the same sexes. And they can't go into that same basket under the guise of let people just be people, right? Because I'm all for people just being people. I'm all for homosexuals that I'm all for love. So basically, if it comes down to you love who you love, and that's cool with me. Where it stops is you can't love a child, not like that. You'll never get me to be okay with it on any level. I can't give any leeway to anybody ever under any circumstance trying to have any sort of romantic sexual relationship with a child. If you're attracted to children, I feel sorry for you. I understand that you probably in your mind probably know that it's not normal and you probably would want to not have that attraction. I probably can give you that, but I could never sit on a jury and find you innocent of anything if there was evidence that you harmed a child sexually. You know, I don't even know where else to go with that. I mean, that's just, if the point of that person's article is to normalize pedophilia, and I know for sure there are people out there who try and normalize pedophilia. In fact, you and I, again, I think we talked about it a little bit on one of our shows. Yeah, you're losing. You're losing because that's probably the one issue almost anyone can get together with anyone else who has the same thought process, meaning I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Black, white, Jew, Christian, atheist, it doesn't matter. If you believe that children should not be sexually abused, you can almost always get all those people into a room and have them agree on that and hate you, the pedophiles. So I don't think there's a win in there ever for pedophilia. I really don't.
No, and I think everyone can agree with you. Like it's, I'm sure there's a very, small portion of human beings that are born with that attraction, unfortunately, and they don't want, I'm sure a lot of them don't want to be, but they are. But it's not okay to normalize it. I mean, it is really not okay to, I think our society is normalizing a lot of things. I mean, the same with, and this is a completely different thing, but it's an idea of normalizing something in society that to me is really fucked. Is that swimmer who's a man, but now he turned into a woman, and now he's beating all of the women in college. He's blown their records out of the water.
I saw something about that, but aren't
right?
they
And
like
we're normalizing.
Like
We're saying
against...
it's okay. He's still there. He's still there, and we're saying,
okay,
and we are normalizing it in society. And we're saying it's okay that you can do this. And again, we've had a whole transgender show. I have nothing wrong with you being the person you need to be, but it means that you cannot discount all of the rest of society for it. You cannot say, well, all our children, I guess they can be abused because pedophilia, we got to normalize pedophilia. Well, all the women, your sports scores are fucked because now men can just say they're a woman and they can swim against you. And I mean, he was on a team where apparently the record holder was on. And they had a meet and he fucking blew past her. It's seconds, like 5 seconds, they're working in half a second, milliseconds in swim, it's like 5 seconds fast. It's like, I mean, this
but you know what, Nichoel, so feel me on this one. Just hang with me on this for a second. Okay. And what I'm about to say is not a blame thing. It's really just Michael Moore personally feeling like I identify something. This is my personal opinion. And I think that it needs to be identified so that we can talk about how to sort of correct this. I mean, political correctness gone just awry in this country. So I feel like the reason why we're dealing with all of this stuff, all the way from the original conversation of pedophilia being normalized to this transgender swimmer just clearly an unfair scenario.
Imagine that girl.
Right? I honestly believe all this comes from so many years of white men marginalizing everybody else. And that includes white women. Okay, so this is not about black, white. This is about literally just not being a heterosexual, middle class to upper class white male. Because even lower class, socioeconomically lower class white males are still marginalized, even more so than their sort of superior counterparts, which would be middle class, upper class white men. So white men having all the power in this country for so long and sort of dictating what beauty was and dictating what success was and dictating how people should live. Like you got to go to church, you got to do this, you got to do that. I think that society as a whole just got so fed up with all of that, that since, say, the 60s, since the civil rights movement and Blacks started getting more power and affluence and so forth, and women got the right to vote and began to work and leave the home more, and more immigrants came into the country, and more normal people began to build wealth and so forth and so on. And there's a million other things that people just decided to be like, look, it's all good. Everything is good. It's all fine. Whatever you want to be, say, do, act, whatever, it's all good. No more white men telling us how to live. And it's gotten to the point now where people just literally don't use common sense. If you are a man, you were born a man, and you decide that you are a woman and you want to make that transition. Michael Moore is all for you. High five. Go you. I hope the surgery goes well. Hope you have a great life and all that. How in the world can we not have a legitimate, rational conversation in which we say, listen, there is a physical advantage.
There's a difference between sex and gender. You want to be a woman now, and your gender is a woman now, but you were born
muscle
a man.
Density, you still have the same blood oxygen ratios that dictate how much oxygen your cells take in when you're exercising. I mean, there's so many little physical nuances that make men different from women, right? Obviously, we're not talking about being human or not human. We're just talking about little things that make us make
Biology.
me a man and make you a woman,
Biology,
right?
yes.
Again, if there was a man, and you have to forgive me, but you're like 5'7", I believe, somewhere around there, 130, 135 pounds, whatever. If there was a man even 5'6", 115 pounds, and you guys were in a fight and people could bet on it, nobody would bet on you ever, because we all know inherently, like, he's probably gonna beat her up even though he's smaller than her. Why do we think that? Because we also know from common sense that men just naturally are stronger than women. Yes, there are some women who are stronger than some men. Yes, I understand that. For the most part, men are going to be stronger than women. And you cannot allow someone to jump in a pool and compete against women and take away all these women who have worked hard, their drive and ambition to compete and to win and to maybe get college scholarships or go pro or go to the Olympics and all this kind of stuff, simply because we're saying, well, we can't say that what he did was wrong in terms of him wanting to change his gender.
Well,
it's just gone crazy.
It is. And that's the hardest part about this reality we're living in right now, is that people who think what you're saying and what I'm saying are the not normal ones. And people who think that this is just what we do, clearly it's normal because they've allowed it.
Like you and I, trust me,
we are
in the majority.
He's been
for sure.
on the team the entire year. He's been swimming, he's been competing, and apparently the whole team has no problem with. I mean, this is so. But you started by saying where it came from, right? So and probably it did, and the people revolted, right? And so now we've gone to this complete other place where, in an effort to normalize everything and to include, it's a good word, in an effort to be inclusive, we created all these equity standards that actually don't
make things very unequitable.
Exactly. Because now this, in order to include this man as a woman on the women's team, you have now fucking deflated there's like 20 women on that team. You've just fucking fucked their whole careers into the equity now, because now we're equitable. Are we? And we can't see this. And I don't, and it's in every single thing that you and I talk about all the time. Same with now this idea of normalizing pedophilia. Well, we've got to be inclusive of these people. You know, there's people out there who like kids, but they don't act on it. So no, we don't fucking have to be inclusive of it.
No.
I'm sorry if you were born with that gene, you are going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to fucking hide in a closet. I don't give a shit.
Why not be inclusive of rapists then?
Exactly.
I can't control myself, and I was alone with her, and therefore I took what I wanted, and I couldn't control myself. why not be inclusive of me and my kind because we can't control ourselves? All this has gotten so dumb, Nicole, that I'm honest to goodness developing a spaceship in my backyard right now, and I'm gonna take off.
We're doing everything in the name of equity. That's actually just even worse than complete racism or complete inequity before.
So I know what I wanted to say. So you were talking about how there's this sort of wanting to normalize all of this kind of stuff, and people must be thinking, let's normalize it. I don't think that at all. I think that the overwhelming majority of people think exactly like you and I think. I think the only difference is the overwhelming majority of people are unwilling to buck against what they are being told is how they should be, meaning
yes,
you should be inclusive. You should allow for this in your thought process. You should allow for people to be who they want. No, 95% of people are probably even higher. You would never get them in some blind survey to say, yes, it's okay, pedophilia, we should accept pedophiles. I would lose every dollar I had if they let me bet on something like that. But I would also bet just as passionately, most of the people who filled out the survey and said, yeah, pedophilia is BS and there's no chance that should be allowed, they wouldn't go out in the street and hold a picket sign. They wouldn't
well, that's
say
what's
it on
happening.
national TV.
That's exactly what's happening in our society, right? Because I think you're absolutely right. And that's the issue with the media. The way the media is slanted, it can portray a national feeling, a national emotion that is not there, right? And this is the issue that we're in. And same thing with COVID, right? The media can say and slant things however they want and create this mass hysteria or what looks like, whereas 95% of the people are like, but a vast majority of them will still go along because they're like, well, I guess that's the majority opinion. That's what I'm going to. And this is a problem with the media. It's not where the problem initiates. The problem starts from somebody else creating problems, but the media perpetuates it. It plays a starring role in this, in our lives, in creating so much division in our lives.
But you and I kind of always get into this philosophical conversation when the conversations go this way, and that is, I disagree with you. I think that giving the media all the credit for how the people think or how society moves is really taking the onus and culpability and responsibility off of us. It's us. We're the problem. It's not the media. The media is serving the dish that we want to eat. They're serving the dish that we want to eat.
They're serving the dish that they want to serve. And it is us because we won't think. You would hope that. And I don't want to blame people for it, but they don't think anymore. I mean, even the massive smear campaign on critical thought this year is just like normalizing not thinking for yourself, literally this year. I mean, that's what I mean. So I really, really think the media has much more of a role in it than you think. And that doesn't take away our own personal blame, for sure, 100%.
Maybe I'm just a bit naive then, or maybe I just have more faith than I should in the ability of individuals to use this thing at the top of their head.
Yes.
But it's unimaginable to me that you let an entity like the news media dictate for you how you're going to think about.
I think that people don't realize it. You don't realize it. Imagine you're just, somebody who you put the news on in the morning and you go to work and you come home, and you talk about the things that happen on the news, and until something happens to you that shows you a very different story from one that you truly believe portrayed on what you saw every day, you don't ever question it, so it's not something that you think you have to think critically about. You just assume that's just life. Like, of course, they're just informing me of what's going on with life and I'm listening, and and you think for yourself, but I mean, how really are our opinions formed? I mean, if we're hearing about worldly stuff from the news, and then I go and talk about it with my friend, and it happens whether we realize it or not, right? It actually takes a greater effort, I think, to really step back and say, wait a second, and you've done it this year, right? And looked at the way different news things portrayed. It's a presentation almost of it's almost a theater event. They have the same kind of script, and they but most people, I think, they're not trying to, they're just living life. Like, this is what I always do. And so it's not like brainwashing. It's just that they didn't really assume, they had to think beyond it. And I think it does shift our definitely our national opinions and behaviors. I mean, to me, I think it's why we're in the hysterical mode that we have been in because of COVID. Because for somebody like me who looks at the data, there is no reason that we should be in that hysterical mode or ever should have been. But the headlines were all very hysterical and pointing to things, which now, even 2 years later, a lot of people are going back and be like, well, when they said this, it's wrong. When they said this, it was wrong. It was wrong. It was wrong. It was exaggerated. It still is. I just wrote an article about the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court had a hearing, had oral arguments for Biden admin's vaccine mandates last Friday, right? So obviously, like, you know, there's people who are trying to get rid of these, right? And in the Supreme Court justices, nonstop, incorrect, exaggerated facts, misinformation about COVID itself. And
yeah, I heard Sotomayor.
Sotomayor was the worst. I mean, she said 100,000 children
kids
are in serious condition, and I mean, and so I wrote about it. I was like, is it possible this could be intentional? Like, did she already pick a side, which is obviously gross negligence for a justice, you know, a Supreme Court justice? Is it possible that she just got her information from the media? I mean, I honestly think that's the most likely, is that we don't realize that we hear these things and we just, okay, that's the truth. And that's why I'm so amped up, and that's why I'm so scared.
But Nicole, I hear you, and I'm with you. I don't disagree with you. I just have another perspective, because I personally think that media, almost all media in all forms, is dangerous in this way, because people typically just don't do the critical thinking. It doesn't matter where your information is coming from. You're going to be led by whoever you're listening to, right? And so we would hope that whoever you're listening to is sort of rational and reasonable and giving out some accurate data on whatever the case may be. But, you know, if you grow up in, you know, Goose Creek, South Carolina or something like that, you're going to typically be conservative, you're going to be Christian, you're going to be right-wing, you're going to have views that were implanted since birth by your parents, right? In the same way that if you grow up in Long Beach, California, you're probably going to be pretty liberal, probably going to be pretty like live the way you want kind of thing. What am I saying? I'm saying that at some point, every man and woman on earth needs to decide for themselves, what do I think about this?
Yes.
What do I think about abortion and why, right? And the why is really important, because if it leads back to, well, it's just what I've always thought, or it's just what mom and dad told me, or it's just what pastor so-and-so told me, or da-da-da-da-da, then that opens the door to like just a flood of then research, critical thinking, and working it out for yourself.
And standing by your convictions. Because I think, like you said, a lot of, while people may do that, which obviously it doesn't appear they are, but maybe they do, then they're also still not standing for those ideals or those thoughts, because they're just.
Can I, you know what, can I get a little personal with you right now? Can I share a little bit about Michael Moore? Is that okay? Can I give you some personal stuff? You're so ridiculous. I grew up in the church, okay? I literally, at 4 years old, I still have a Bible that I won for memorizing X amount of Bible verses and winning a competition at church. And it got my name inscribed in it and all that kind of stuff. I have literally grown up into the church. I became an ordained minister at 23 years old. Was an associate pastor at a church. I've preached, I've taught, I've counseled, I've literally espoused the word of God as much as I can for most of my life, okay? Why am I telling you that? About 15 years ago, maybe, no, longer, probably 20 years ago now, probably around the time I met Esther and got with Esther and got married and all that kind of stuff, I started really having issues internal issues, right? Because I was now a pastor, I was leading people, I was preaching from the word, and it was a genuine thing for me, right? This was something that I really, really wanted to do and felt good about. It made me feel good. I loved seeing people's reactions to it, so forth and so on, right? It wasn't getting paid. There was not money. There was not prestige. It was just all about how I was feeling about myself. I really began to grapple with homosexuality. When I say grapple with it, I'm not talking about my own sexuality. I'm talking about how I saw other people and their sexuality, right?
Based on what you learned in church.
Based on what I had learned growing up. And even some influence from my dad, who I loved and respected. And, you know, he grew up very old school, and that just wasn't the way men got down. Like real men, you don't get down like that. And I think, just because the story can be real long, let me just make it real quick. I met a guy who was a homosexual. He found out that I was a pastor. I really liked him. He really liked me. When he found out I was a pastor, he literally was about to turn and walk away from me. And I kind of asked him, like, what's up? What just happened? And he was like, well, you probably don't want to talk to me. You probably don't like me. And I was like, why? He was like, because I'm gay. And it was from that point on that I was like, this is wrong. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is because any Christian or anyone that knows anything about the Bible can probably find about 2 or 3 verses in the Bible to substantiate why they can't stand homosexuals and homosexuality and all this kind of stuff. Keep in mind, they'll never talk to you about love or what Christ's actual message was or anything like that. They will just use the verses to substantiate why they hate a certain group of people. Why am I bringing all this up? Let me wrap it up for you. I had to decide for myself about the most important aspect of myself, right? For me, was my spirituality, is my spirituality, right? So it's a tough thing, especially for a young man, to literally kind of go against what his whole upbringing was about, which was to serve the Lord, keep his commandments, believe in the word, which is the Bible, right? And if you have a few verses in there that describe a whole group of people as an abomination, you know, that's pretty tough to like overcome in your mind and your heart and all that kind of stuff. Nichoel, I started doing critical thought on my own. I started really researching the whole message of the Bible and the whole message of Christ's teachings and all that kind of stuff. And you know what I came to? I came to Christ's teachings were all about love and inclusion. He never once mentioned homosexuality, not one time. Jesus Christ, right? The one that all Christians say they're following and they want to be like, and that's their goal is to meet him someday in the heaven. He never once mentioned homosexuality. And I had to, the only reason why I was able to even come to that conclusion was because I read and I used my brain and I thought, you know what? If homosexuality was the most important thing on earth, I'm pretty sure Christ would have mentioned it at some point in any one of his teachings. And for me to deny love and kindness and respect to a whole group of people based on something that I had just been taught by really what is somebody else's perspective of the Bible, I'm doing myself a disservice and I'm doing humanity a disservice because I'm cutting myself off from a whole group of people who I have actually found to be quite engaging, and I've had good friendships and able to laugh with and all this kind of stuff. And all of that comes down to like Michael Moore made a decision to think for himself, right? And by the way, a lot of Christians who would hear me talk like this right now, I've literally lost friends having these conversations. And I'm talking about recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've literally lost good friends espousing what I'm talking about right now. Wow. Because people don't even want to hear it. They're like, you are absolutely going against the word of God and this and that and the other. And I'm like, how can I be going against the word of God when the golden rule was to love your neighbor as yourself? It didn't say love your heterosexual neighbor as yourself. It said love your neighbor as yourself. People literally have stopped talking to me and my wife and stopped hanging out with us because that's the way that I think. But that's not the point of all this. The point of all this is to simply say, I know what it's like to have to use my own mind and thought and ability to process for myself and get beyond what I've been brought up in. A lot of people have been brought up in a lot of different things. And maybe even let's get back to the original topic. Maybe a lot of the people who have the person who wrote the article about pedophilia grew up in such a way that the people around her were normalizing or accepting pedophilia, right? That person is going to have to do what I did, and that person is going to have to really give it some real critical thought, and they're going to have to do some research, and they're going to have to maybe talk to some kids who have been in those relationships and been abused and all of that kind of stuff to really understand there is no acceptable form of adult minor relationships. There is not one acceptable form of it, not one. Like, there's no exception, not one. If you are an adult, hands off.
Is there an exception?
Can I just say there's no exception? I wish I knew it in multiple languages. I would literally rattle off languages right now, but I only know it in English. There is no exception. None.
That was good.
None. Yeah, none.
Yeah, no, I agree. And 100%. I want all of people to just think more critically in our own lives, because it is true. We are fed our beliefs. We think we thought them on our own, but we are fed a vast majority of our beliefs from the time we're born, right? You know, how else do you learn? Is you just assimilate the beliefs of those around you, your parents and your teachers and your grandparents and your friends, and that's why we come to like crises like you had in, you know, your crises of faith. Is like, this doesn't feel right, like, and you have to start figuring out who you are and what you really believe. I think we're having major crises across our entire country, right? Mental health is trash because so many people are so confused and they haven't come to terms with what their beliefs are.
And I will say, by the way, that I gained far more peace doing the research and actually allowing God to give me peace about what I thought. And the people who cease to talk to me and cease to be friends with me and all that kind of stuff, as I've always stated, because I'm such an awesome individual, is like, it's your loss. Like, if you're not in my life, it's your loss.
Obviously.
I mean,
yeah.
Hey.
If there's people that are literally not tolerant of somebody else because they believe something different than you, that's hard to be friends. You know, you would hope that they could see, but that's exactly my issue, is like trying to get people to see things.
But I can also understand them as well. Like, if I had a friend who came out and said they were, you know, a pedophile, they probably wouldn't use that word, but if they came out and said they were a pedophile,
map.
Oh, I probably would walk away from them. I'm sure I would walk away from them. So I guess what I'm saying is, I guess I understand when someone violates your moral code.
I bet you wouldn't walk away, but I also bet you wouldn't have your children by them. You know, I mean, you would try to if it's a good friend of yours and they try to explain to you, I mean, I don't know, maybe it would hurt the friendship, but I can't see you just being like, well, goodbye.
Actually, I have to be honest, and of course I would never mention names, but I had a friend who I found out later in life that I literally knew most of my life, had an issue with, I wanted to say dating. That's such a horrible word. He had an issue with relationships with young girls. And later on in life, when I now have kids.
Was it R. Kelly?
Was it what?
R. Kelly.
Yeah, let's just say it was R. Kelly. Everybody knows him, so it's fine. Let's just say R. Kelly and I were friends back in the day. And I found out that he liked dating young girls.
13-year-olds.
Yeah, once I had daughters, and I have two of them, or once I had kids, it didn't matter that they were daughters, I guess. I was uncomfortable with him. And by the way, I didn't find this out until after I had children. So it wasn't like I accepted this and then had kids and had an attack of conscience. I literally didn't know this until we were grown 30-something-year-old men. And yeah, I had to leave him alone. Couldn't do it. I was just like, this is, you know, this was a good friend. I mean, this was a good friend. So I do anyway, that point was just to say,
you do understand your friends. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. So It hurts at some point. I mean, I guess it stops hurting, but I guess I understand. I do.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
at least you are thinking for yourself and you're able to understand it. That's good.
You know what? I'm always going to think for me. I'm always going to do that. It's one thing I really like about me, of all my little flaws and the
Well, you
nuances that might
like a lot
irritate
of
people.
things about you. I mean, I'm just going to be honest right now. So do I.
You like a lot of things about me too.
I do, and
you like
I
a lot
like
of
a
things
lot of
about
things
yourself.
about me. So
Exactly.
that's why we're good together. All right. Well, anyways, for those who want to go and look at that thread, you can check it out
Did
on
you ever
Twitter.
look up NAMBLA? Remember when we talked about this before and I told you to look up NAMBLA?
No, and I don't
the
want
National
to.
North. Oh, you got to look it up, dude. Just look it up. North American Man Boy Love Association. They have been around for a while, some years, and the stuff that they espouse is so. You got to read it. It's like, it's unimaginable. I can't believe that there's people who would actually publish like their thoughts on how much they love little people. You got to read it. I'm telling you, it's disturbing, but you got to read it. You really do. You really do.
All right, I will read it. Okay, for everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Adios.